widespread was the issue of social media messages that discouraged vaccination?
Yeah, in the last few years, we have been seeing that this has become a real issue in some part of Kerala, especially northern Kerala,
Okay.
where the parents are being increasingly influenced by the social media campaigns
Okay.
against vaccines.
Okay. So I'm going to tell you right now that, so what you want to do is that. You just, what you want to do is that. Right, no, that's fine. So the reason you want to do it, there are two reasons. One is that when you're on a chair with the arms, you always want to try to have an armless chair. So when you're on a chair with arms, it can make you look hunched. So when you're appearing for the camera, it doesn't appear as if you don't look comfortable at all. And you were right, you weren't comfortable, yeah, so that you did the right thing in changing. The other thing is what you want to do if you're wearing, no one here is wearing a suit jacket. No one's here is wearing a suit jacket. And I should have worn one again, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're wearing a suit jacket.
I don't know what kind of a jacket is that, but yeah, I'm wearing a jacket.
That's fine. So what you can do before you sit down, you don't have to worry about it, you're fine, is just smooth it out and sit on it. Okay. The reason you sit on it is because so that your shoulders don't bunch up. You sit back in the chair, and it doesn't give you the hunched look. Okay. So again, the issue of social media messages that discourage vaccination. Did you determine what your target audience would be in terms of families or mothers with children or things like that?
Yeah, of course, we have seen that it has been, penetrating into various sections of the society, especially the parents and the grandparents to some extent. Because in those portions, in those areas, mostly the decisions regarding vaccination are taken by the grandparents as well in consultation with the parents. So this is something which, with the increased penetration of social media, there is a possibility that the anti-vaccine messages are reaching more faster and more deeper than the positive messages.
Were the anti-vaccine messages determined to be coming from any single source?
No, when we did this study, we found that this has the sources are different, but it pertains more to the Western countries, from where primarily the sources of information are from the US and some other countries. But then it gets translated to the local context very much, adapted very much, suiting to the local audience, very carefully done. So it penetrates easily. They comes with experiences and examples from the local context, which makes it more appealing.
Why do you think it does penetrate a little bit easier when it's coming from sort of a Western source?
Yeah, the thing is, people who are actually getting these messages, they do not know that these are messages taken from the West and being translated to the local context. They simply believe this is true, this is science, this is true, this is what we figured out when we did the interviews with parents and other caretakers.
Did you have a fairly large group of people that you sort of interviewed to find out where either the messages were coming from, or were you able to kind of analyze their social media patterns?
Yeah, of course. We did interviews with the caretakers, the parents, the grandmothers, and also with providers. And also we interviewed with some of those people who are engaged in, which is already known out that these are the people who are sort of spreading these messages. So they somehow agreed to have interviews, and we also figured out from those interviews that from where they are getting the sources. We just triangulated with the available sources in the internet, and we could figure it out.
Okay, we'll stop you there for just a minute. So if you noticed, I was nodding my head while he was going on. So essentially, if you're being interviewed on live TV or radio, you'll notice the person doing that is basically I'm giving you a nonverbal cue that I'm listening, and then sort of prompting you to keep going. And the reason I'm doing that is because normally conversationally you'd go or huh, or things like that you're recognizing the conversation, you're acknowledging what they're saying, you're saying that I'm invested in what you're saying. But when you're doing TV, you essentially have to wipe that from kind of your vocabulary and basically give those nonverbal cues to kind of elicit more conversation. So when you see it in a person, when a person's interviewing you, don't just think that they're weird. They're kind of doing that on purpose so that their voice isn't on tape. So could a foreign governmental agency, like say the CIA, have been behind any of these messages, you think?
No, I don't think that's anything to do with any particular government, because this is an issue all over the world, and I think US also faces similar issues. And we have seen the recent outbreaks of measles and diphtheria in some of the other Western countries as well. So this is nothing to do with the government, but there's a role that the governments can play in sort of preventing or managing this misuse of social media.
That was a great
That was
answer
a
to a
great
crazy
answer.
question.
Nice
Yeah.
job.
Really
Yeah.
nice. So that was obviously a question just thrown out there because I had my own agenda as a reporter who would be asking about that question. You handled it well. You didn't totally go away from the question, or you didn't. I was hoping, not hoping that you did, but to just kind of look at me weird and this guy's nuts. But you may face questions like that those are the off the rails questions that I talked about before, where the questioner is giving this question and all of a sudden it veers off in this direction. Your job is to do what you did, which is basically just keep on message, acknowledge to some degree what they're saying, but then kind of convert it back to what you wanted to say. So good job.
Thank you.